like to call this regular city council meeting of October 14, 2013 to order. And we would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call shows all are present. Review the minutes of September 23rd.
The council comments that it should have been the chamber website calendar, not a brochure, is what they've added for the movies in the park.
Sorry, nosy.
Anything else?
I move the minutes as amended.
A second.
For discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Monthly bills.
On page 3, Ted, you got $100 more than you were supposed to.
Yeah, I noted that.
Bonus.
No,
Bonus round, yeah.
no, that was a payment for a piece of equipment, and it shouldn't have been put on
Oh,
that
it
check.
shouldn't have been on that check, okay.
So it makes it look like income now. And you know what happens to us at the end of the year on that.
Cha-ching. Cha-ching.
Those ugly 1099s.
Anything else?
Here comes Uncle Sam.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'd like to know what O-tax means.
Yeah,
I've seen it today for the first time ever.
right.
Who can tell me
That was
O-tax?
predominant.
It's for an overpayment of taxes.
Okay,
We get that quite often.
okay. I just never saw it that
Extensive, yeah.
acronym
right.
before. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
on page 1, staples for copier, $130. Is this just for staples, or is there something else included? Seems like a lot of staples.
How many do you have in your packet?
I can
Extra
check for you,
large,
Mr. Rizzi. I would doubt it. I think that's, again, just because we're limited with the number of characters we can put up there.
Okay,
I can see there being a
I will check.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mike,
David, it's my understanding we're going to get that $500 back from MERS.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so we already paid it. They're just going to,
Yes, so they're going to have to reimburse us, so we've
Okay.
got to check back.
thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
I'll move the bills.
Support.
further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions?
There is, I'd like to add one item, and that would be number 8, and it's sale of assets. And it's simply because we're getting too much money for it, so we have to get that approved by council.
When will we do?
I'll move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Seems like a.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
He needs to pure all the whole
A
bills.
public comment. Anybody wishes to speak at this time on any item not listed on our agenda? Hi.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members. I'm Tim McClory. I'm your risk manager and insurance agent from the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. And normally when I show up, I always have a piece of paper with, that tells me how much money you guys are getting back this year. So
Bring
and I have a
gifts.
check for you guys today. Just to let you know what this is, as a member of the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, you guys, the MMRMA is not a insurance company. It's a self-insurance pool. And the owners of the program are our members, of which you are one. So when there's money to be had, the check doesn't go out to stockholders, like an insurance company would send. they give back money to the membership. This year, the MMRMA gave back just around 14 million back to the membership. Your portion is $11,019. So
All right.
I'm here to give you $11,019. And since the program began back in 2006, the MMRMA has given back just under 115 million back to the membership. So I appreciate your business, and I thank you, and I'm going to give this check to David for proper use. I'm sure you'll find good use for it.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Hurry back.
Please come again.
You know, that coupled with our rate staying the same, that's really a very attractive deal.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to say, I'm sorry, nothing this year. Thank you.
Good evening, Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. For the general information of council members and administration and public, when they opened up the street in the middle of town, the thickness of our pavement was approximately 8 inches with 8 inches of underbase underneath it. In other words, aggregate under 14 to 16 inches. That information, and I took pictures of it, and I'm sure some other people have also. That information may bear on your future decisions, okay, as they come up. But that's what it was, okay, when they opened up the street. Also, you might be pleased to know that the Bricko guys and the S&S Boring fellas, they've all been spending a little money in town. They've been buying things. They gas up and fuel up their diesel trucks, and they buy food in the restaurants, I suppose all the other accoutrements that go with construction workers. And I thought you'd all be pleased to know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
I'll sleep better tonight.
I thought you were going to tell us about the horse posts, the posts found in the ground underneath the four corners, where we determined that they were probably for tying horses to back in 1890s when. Yeah.
We've already discussed it.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, moving on to old business, Knowles of South Lyon, the second reading.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Before council tonight, at the September 23rd meeting, council approved the first reading of the rezoning to a PD zoning district from R2. So tonight, before council will be the second reading, as well as the preliminary stage 1 PD site plan for Knowles of South Lyon. You've been provided with extensive information regarding this matter, including in the agenda note. Are there any questions at this point? And I also, just as a comment, I do know that the developer is here and does have some information to provide to the council and wishes to discuss some issues related to the development.
Well, I talked to Mr. Elko a little earlier, and you had asked for elevations specifically at both of our previous two meetings, and he had suggested that he had them with him at the last meeting, and there was just not an opportunity offered up for him to present them. The reason I had called Mr. Elko was the documents that we've been receiving have had 25-foot setback in the front and 35-foot setback in the rear. R2 is 30 in the front and 40 in the rear, and essentially we were having a conversation about that. He had characterized at that point that he didn't see a problem with using what our actual setbacks are. If that holds true, then I don't have any concerns about that.
What about the deck?
A decent-sized deck with 40,
Yeah, actually, there's still more than ample room. I mean, there was
It was like 15 feet.
the plan that he had given us, the overview plan had 40 foot to the deck itself, or actually 35 foot to the deck
To the
itself.
deck, you're right.
Right,
And the
so
deck
that
was
a
20
25
foot.
or 20 foot deep deck.
So it would
yeah.
be a 15-foot deep deck.
Well, it would ultimately end up being 10 foot now because he's moving back 5 feet in the front as well.
Yeah,
So, but still, 10 by 40, I mean, that's a 400 square foot deck. Typically, we've been seeing more in the 300 square foot range. So if that holds true, people can still,
just narrow.
and the deck actually, that's a misnomer because the deck doesn't fall into the setback requirement. So as long as it's first floor or below, at grade, that doesn't, you have 10% additional leeway that you can encroach into the setback. So I think that everybody will be able to find a satisfactory solution to whatever their deck needs are in the way that's going to be laid out.
10% is,
I think the only other concern that I had, and I was talking with Carmine, was the actual plan that we've been given. There were no dimensions on it. And Carmine's assured me that we don't need to be terribly concerned about that, at this stage of the game, all that stuff will be fleshed out and confirmed by the time that we go to final. And, because there's an awful lot of iterations that'll take place with planning, and engineering might end up impacting how things might need to be tweaked and such. So I will take him at his word. He understands that my feeling is that at this point, we need to establish as many benchmarks as we can so that we are assured as closely as we can be to getting, that our expectations can be fulfilled. And so by being deliberate and vocalizing everything or putting it in documents, then we have a defensible position if something were to happen down the road, that's all.
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
go for it.
Go ahead, Bev.
I would just like to hear the police chief's take on the access road, the second access road.
And as long as there is a second access road, as would be indicated in the alternative plan, if that road is built to city standards and open 24/7, that will satisfy the traffic and public safety needs that I've addressed at prior meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Joe.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Bev's question. With this second access point where it's at in Kestrel Court, I'm correct? Is that your first preference for a second access point? Is that where you ultimately would like the point to be?
It might not have been my first choice, however, I have to say that it does satisfy the public safety and traffic needs. Actually, the further from North Mill Street and Kestrel Ridge, the L intersection, the better as far as the police department would be concerned. But whether it's Kestrel Court or Grand Court, we can live with either.
Okay, but it's not your first preference.
No, it wouldn't have been my first choice.
Okay, I want to go back to something you said about the traffic. You said that you're certain that the traffic would be enough, I don't know the wording here, but be enough to allow for safety with the access points that are proposed.
With the second access road at Kestrel Court?
Yes.
Well, according to our traffic engineer's opinion, yes, as long as we have those two entrances.
Okay.
Even though they're a little closer in proximity than we might like, it still accomplishes allowing eastbound and northbound traffic to make a left turn at Kestrel. And then southbound or westbound traffic could then go straight south on Mill Street. So it would essentially split the traffic load in half.
Now, I apologize if I overlooked this in my packet. There's a lot of different pages here. Have we had a traffic study to verify the opinion of the traffic engineer?
No, there was not a traffic study conducted on behalf of the city. Normally, if there's an actual traffic study conducted, it's done at the expense of the developer, but perhaps our planner could speak to that.
So we're going off of the opinion of our engineer?
Of the professional traffic engineer from the Traffic Improvement Association of Michigan. That's where I got my guidance from with respect to peak traffic.
Thank you. No more questions.
It'll come all the way through.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I have a question. Hang on, I was thinking about yours and I lost track. Carmen, what is, I keep asking for these elevations and I'll see them eventually. I mean, what am I gonna see after this reading today? If it goes through, what do I have still to come to council? Will I see a plan review? Will I see, like, when does the engineer get this? Like, when am I gonna get more stuff? What am I to expect?
Did you go to the mic there, Carmen?
Yes, this is a two-step, well, it's actually four-step if you count Planning Commission and City Council. It's a two-step process. There's preliminary and there's final. What you will see if this is approved as a rezoning, it will then go back to the Planning Commission, and at that point in time, they're going to have to provide more detailed engineering information, and the Planning Commission is going to review all the details on the project, including, you know, the infrastructure, buildings, elevations and materials, sidewalks, all those sorts of issues, and where the pathways will be, you know, how the construction is going to take place. Those sorts of things would be reviewed by the Planning Commission. And when they're satisfied that the plan meets all the ordinance requirements and is what they're looking for, it would then come to you for your final approval.
And that's still a preliminary or that's a final?
That would be final.
Okay,
This is preliminary. Basically, what you're doing is you're locking into the general layout and configuration of this development. There will be, as Glenn indicated, there will be some changes in the, you know, the lot dimensions in terms of this one might have to be a little bit wider, this one might have to be tweaked a little bit here and there, depending on, you know, where we want the pathways to go, you know, where the utilities are being located, those sorts of things. So there will be some tweaking that goes on at final site plan, but what comes back to you will generally look like what you're seeing right now. There shouldn't be major differences.
and I'll have, so at that time I'll have like elevations and how many houses are there, and we'll have the whole full engineer report?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify that on the record. Thank you. And I wasn't clear with what Joe said. Did we have a traffic study? Are we getting a traffic study? Is it recommended for a traffic study between the two courts? Or?
I'm comfortable with the opinion expressed by Traffic Improvement Association of Michigan as long as we have two 24/7 access roads.
Okay, okay. So either one you feel is fine, one would be better than the other, but in your opinion, but you're fine.
Yes, either way, as long as there are two, that meets the needs that I've expressed and concerns I've expressed in prior meetings.
Okay.
And wouldn't it be fair to say that, I mean, the ultimate configuration would be two opposite sides of the development to have an entrance, you know, to be best assured that there's good flow and limitations of congestion?
To a degree, the more access and egress points, the better. And in fact, the engineer, Mr. Allen from Traffic Improvement, had expressed the possibility or discussed the possibility of having an exit up to the north that could go into the condos up there. I don't believe that he realized that was necessarily private property up there. But certainly if there was a direct access off to 11 Mile, that would be wonderful.
Right. I mean, conceptually, that's a great solution. We don't have those alternatives, though.
It doesn't appear that we have that option.
I also had a concern about the R2 setbacks, but if we can work that out, I'm fine with that. If we can work that out with the 30 and the 40. All right. I'm good, thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
If we were to have, right now, the primary access would be North Mill Street, right? To this property?
Correct.
If we had either a through street or that emergency access, you would also have a secondary access point that would eventually get you to Martindale, wouldn't you? I mean, the concern is, my understanding, the reason you want 2 access points to this proposal is so that people can get out of that, there'd be 2 ways for the people to get out of there in case there was an emergency with the primary access point, right?
That was one of the concerns. Another huge concern is AM and PM peak traffic.
I understand, but that's more on Mill Street and 10 Mile, isn't it?
Well,
Or,
at the corner of Kestrel Ridge and North Mill, if there were only the one egress point, that would cause a bottleneck at that location.
I understand, but people can either go straight on Mill Street, or they can go through Kestrel Ridge Drive, go to Eagle Heights Drive, and eventually get to Martindale, can't they?
Yes, they could do that similar to the fashion that they would do it with the second road onto Kestrel Court or Grand Court for that matter. The difference being you would have twice as much traffic backed up, AM and PM, trying to get in or out of the subdivision if you had the only 24/7 open road being at North Mill Street and Kestrel Ridge.
Well, we're gonna put a traffic light there?
No.
We're gonna put stop signs? I mean, what is it gonna be, the traffic control device?
I will have a traffic engineer out there. My belief at this time was could probably be controlled by a stop sign.
Of course it can be controlled by a stop sign.
Yeah, it's a residential
Yeah, it's
street.
residential. Uh-oh.
No, I'm just trying to visualize
Never
what
goes
the
up on its
traffic
own.
congestion would be absent a traffic signal. I mean, I can understand a stop sign, but I mean, it's not like you're gonna have traffic backed up on Pontiac Trail. If you have just the emergency
won't. It's an
access,
election
and then
year.
you have the primary access point, which was one of the proposals. I'm just trying to visualize all this congestion, but anyways, yes.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I may, I just want to reaffirm Chief Collins' position that a true secondary roadway is ideal. From a fire situation, sometimes it can be tactically advantageous for us to bring in rigs from an east or from an opposing viewpoint to land from a second hydrant. That's a standard procedure for us. So the emergency access route is the minimum code requirement. It's the last worst option of not having 2 methods to do it. I've spoke with other chiefs in other communities that have them. They're great for the first couple years. As legacy goes on, you can run into maintenance of these, not only from a vegetation perspective, but from issues such as snow removal as well. So I would want to affirm Chief Collins' position that any sort of true through roadway would be our first preference, as opposed to the emergency access route. The emergency access route is the last code compliant thing that we can kind of stake in the ground that says you have to do this, but a true secondary route from a fire service perspective, I'd concur with Chief Collins from a law enforcement perspective. So, thank you.
Last question. Has there been any additional revisions to that stage 1 preliminary plan? I noticed in some of your materials, it says, which was last revised June 7th, 2013, if this remains accurate. I just want to make sure it's accurate.
As to that point, I would ask the applicant to identify whether there are updated revision dates on any alternate plans so that they can be, if there are references to them in any motion or during council, that it's clear which plan is being referred to. If they're not, if they don't have updated dates, we need to figure out, I think council should figure out a way to identify whether it's alternative or original or some type of terminology to make it clear you know which plan you're referring to. Because there has been a revision that shows a full through street at Kestrel
Yeah,
Court.
that's what it
Yeah,
is.
and that's the one that I think everybody's assuming is the most current.
That's the most current, but I think when I looked at the document, I noticed it was the same revision date as the original.
And
And
it's,
the same sheet number and all the other
and it still says a PD
information.
will provide emergency access to Lyon Boulevard. It says in here still.
So I think just for purposes of clarity, when, when you're going to refer to that alternative plan or the through street, there should be some, meeting of the minds among council about how you're going to address that and refer to that alternate plan that's been updated.
How about the plan that doesn't have dimensions? I mean, the other one, the previous plan did have dimensions. This one doesn't. So,
Printer.
and as a matter of fact, the engineer even had spoken to that in his correspondence.
Oh, and it might be as simple as having one of you turn over to the clerk a copy that has A or B or whatever, however, some kind of notation so that everybody understands which plan is being referred to.
This is what I asked you for 20 minutes ago. This one.
Oh.
And
All of a
possibly,
sudden you pull it out.
possibly the applicant can clear that up for us.
Actually, I thought you were talking about one that had a...
No, I was just looking for that.
Well, I'm Bob Wanty with Washington Engineering, and
Yeah.
we
So
did
this seems-
make a few changes that mainly due to the setback. We had the 35 and 25 on the plan originally, and I'm not sure how that happened. I believe that it might have been, we were at one time going to try for some R3 zoning, but we did change the setback to the 30 and 40 feet as required in the R2 district. I've added had them add some dimensions on the plan. There's also a revision date of 10/11/13,
Okay, that'll help.
so.
That's
so-
essentially this plan, but dimensioned?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And with a right date.
Yeah,
Okay.
10/11, and all the setbacks were changed. The path was moved out of the lot, so
All right.
they just changed that this morning.
Okay.
Has
Is that-
anyone seen that from our,
Has that
like,
been distributed to
No.
council or
No.
through the city?
So if you want to use that old plan and just refer to, say, with the setbacks at being at 30 for the front, 40 for the rear, it's basically the same plan. The layout, we shifted a lot just for that one, between 40 and,
Let me just take a quick look.
where the path went through the lot, between 41 and 42. But you can refer to this piece of paper that you have with the correct setbacks.
And these, even as the planner had spoken, there's still likely to end up being minor tweaks. If this is a general concept, then we should be solid.
Yeah, when we go through the design, we're gonna find that we need easements for water main between lots, maybe, and have to shift them back and forth. There may be a storm drainage outlet that we have to take between two lots, and so, again, those things will shift. The lots will stay the same size. We won't have any more lots. It's possible there could be a few less, as a matter of fact. But, no, it will change when we get into the engineering and design the stormwater system and all the utilities, and also grading could have an effect on things.
And you'll be working with HRC, correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we'll prepare the plans according to the city standards, and preliminary and final site plan, and submit them to HRC, and then they will review them along with probably DPW, the utilities, and Carmine. So, yeah, everybody will look at it. Possibly, I'm not sure if it goes to the Drain Commission or not here, but definitely with HRC.
Will you be the ones delineating the wetlands?
The wetlands have already been delineated by Brooks Williamson. They were.
Has that been sent off to the state then, to be
No,
certified?
we don't need to do that. It's been delineated by a professional wetland consultant. And we can hire the state to go out and verify it, but it's not a requirement.
Huh.
What will happen is if we end up impacting the wetland such that we would need a permit for one reason or another, which at this point I don't see any reason we would need to do that, then we would submit a permit to the state, and then they would go out and verify the flagging of the wetland.
But up to that point, it's the engineer that did the delineation that their credibility is the ones that we're holding to?
Yeah, they're the professional wetland consultant recognized, by the state. The state doesn't certify wetland consultants. They have to have certain training and methodology of how they locate the wetlands. They've done enough of them that the state understands that they know, that what they're doing. And so We've used them before, and the states come back, and there's always a little bit of tweaking, but very seldom. It's, you know, it's an opinion, is a wetland here, or is it 6 feet this way? So,
But at some point, somebody's going to install silt fence and things like that, right?
oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
all, during construction, we'll have to get a soil erosion permit. We'll actually have to get a notice of coverage from the state for a erosion permit, because we'll be disturbing over 5 acres. So we'll get a permit from the state and the local permit, and all the silt fences and inlet filters, straw bales, mud tracking roads, all of those things will be put in, and it'll be shown on the plan, and we'll actually get a permit to start grading. After the city approves the plans, then we go after these other permits.
One last question. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Procedurally, should the council agree on the conditions before this, the motion for the second reading is brought? Because, I mean, I don't want to sit there and read a motion for 10 minutes
Modify it on the fly,
and then all of a
yeah.
sudden it doesn't fly with all the conditions, because there might not be agreement amongst the council on all the conditions.
I think that certainly makes sense. It's going to be easier from a procedural and parliamentary standpoint if you have some understanding about what are the acceptable conditions that you'd be looking to put into a motion and then make the motion, rather than to make it and then have to amend it.
Right. Okay.
That certainly makes sense, and I encourage that discussion so that you have some idea of where your other council members sit on various issues if you're looking to address a particular condition.
All right, and then the motion itself, the conditions that we have listed would be
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just real quickly, as a
Go
point of
ahead.
information, we're looking at two separate motions. I just want to clarify for both council and for the general public. We're looking at two separate motions. One would be addressing the second reading of the rezoning. And under the city's PD zoning, or plan development zoning, a rezoning to PD is closely tied to the site plan. And there are two stages, as Mr. Aventini pointed out. There's a preliminary stage 1 and a final stage 2. We are currently at the preliminary stage 1, so that would be the second motion, would be to address whether to approve or deny the preliminary stage 1 plan. And as presented, you can make reference to the specific revision date that may help clarify for record purposes which plan is being referred to. Also, keep in mind that the original submission of plans included 7 pages, and I believe the modification may be only 1 page of that packet. So you may need to address that issue, and I can certainly jump in and help you if you need help on that issue.
Gotcha. As clear as mud for you?
No.
Well, it seems as though the very first thing that we need to determine is that a full second access or the emergency access, and,
I think that's the big one.
Yes.
Unless I'm mistaken.
absolutely.
Is everyone satisfied with the setbacks? 30?
Yes, I mean.
I'm satisfied with the setbacks.
They'll need to be stated, but yes, if they'll change them to 30 and 40, then we're good.
I'm good at that.
Okay. So I guess the issue is going to be then the primary versus the emergency, right?
Yeah.
Access?
Personally, I don't have any qualms at all. It should be a full street.
Primary, yeah.
I'm going with the police chief's recommendation for public safety, because that's number one, public safety. That's why we're all here.
And as I asked as well, I agree with the chief.
Well, I've been leaning towards an emergency access, just because I know 2 subdivisions that were developed in the last 10 to 15 years that had one access point for, I mean, I know one subdivision that had one access point for 167 houses, and that was coming on to 9 Mile. If there's any choke points, that would be during 7:40 7:15 and 7:40 in the morning and when school gets out in the afternoon, and somehow we've done it, but, I would favor more of the emergency access, so that's my position on it, so I think right now I'm in the majority, or minority, so.
Yeah. I tend to agree with Mike that I thought the emergency access would solve a lot of problems. But it's difficult to stand up before the two chiefs and say that your professional opinion isn't respected. So I would, and I've driven through the area to see where those courts were and, where that would come in. But I think I would agree with the majority of council to go with the extra access. Thank you.
So then procedurally, I'm sorry, Ted.
No, go ahead.
But procedurally, so if the majority of the council then is for the the road as opposed to the emergency access, would we have to do that with a motion for the condition?
Yeah, that's in this motion.
It's in the motion.
No, I think you've been provided with draft language for a proposed motion.
It'd be
I
using,
think if someone is in a position to make that motion, I've tried to lay out the ways in which you could address the access issue as one of the conditions for the second reading. And why don't we, I think council ought to focus first on the second reading for the rezoning first, and then
Well,
address
this-
the site plan as a secondary issue.
this is part of what your proposed motion for the second reading was.
Yeah, you included
Exactly.
both.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So that would be feature 9 and delete feature 8 in here. The Roman
Well,
numeral 8
If
on
I
the
may,
second
just for
page.
clarification
Sure.
purposes, the reference to page 1, the item 989 those are reflections of what the plan depicts. In other words, I'm encouraging the council to make findings consistent with the city's zoning ordinance with respect to PD, but also to lay out as part of the preface for the motion what is being reflected in the plan, so that there's some record, and then we could administratively make sure that the plans match up with the reference by the applicant as to that October 11 plan update. I do realize this is complex and there's a lot of
Yeah, well,
material, so.
we have to approve the PD on the second reading. Then can we discuss what we want with the plan, or is that gotta be rolled into this vote?
No, there'll be two separate matters. The first one should be whether you approve or deny the second reading on the rezoning. If that is approved, then you would go to approval of the preliminary site plan, whether approved or denied.
Okay.
Okay?
Does that make sense?
Yep.
But you want the findings read into the,
Two motions.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you and I
This is-
understand,
this
well,
is
we've got the
number
same
one.
place. Yeah,
This is number 2.
yeah.
And then number 2, we get rid of this.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, do we need, somebody wanna make a motion on that for second reading approval of the PD?
1, 2. Okay, so the date of that plan was what?
10/11.
10/11.
10/11, okay.
Tim, I'm sorry, I must have not had
And
enough
that's essentially the
caffeine.
plot plan.
We have to list the findings for the approval of the motion for the rezoning.
Yes, section 102-382 has items A through H in the zoning ordinance that are the standards for plan developments. I encourage the council to make findings as to those standards that would support an approval of a second reading, which is the rezoning of the property. And the ordinance draft is postured as an amendment of the zoning map. So the designation of this parcel would be changed from R2 to PD.
Oh my God. Just stop talking. Every time you say something, I get more confused.
It's more complex every time. You refine it. Okay,
So, man,
so the revision of the plan on findings number 10, or 9, excuse me, the reflection of the change to the 10, 11, 13 plan,
I would insert the date.
is there a reference to, I mean, because that's only one page of the other 7 or 6 pages.
Go this way.
Yeah, Carmen and I discussed this. I think we're comfortable matching that up administratively.
Okay.
I don't think there's been
Without any further verbiage?
There's been no further changes that we're aware of to the other pages in the
We
plan.
do
Yes,
this, this
okay.
whole
The set
thing
of
goes
plans.
out. This whole number, 8 goes out. And it's replaced in total with a single primary access.
all right, Tim, if I make the motion, can I just use the motion to approve the second reading and just list the conditions subject to that motion to approve the second reading, and then make the second motion about the stage 1 preliminary plan and put the conditions on that? As far as like the main road versus the emergency access? Or do we literally have to read all 3 pages of that first motion to,
If I can cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I think you put in the date reference
okay,
up right under the findings in the introductory paragraph.
okay,
That will reflect the most updated overall site plan page, date. You eliminate the emergency access reference and include the reference to the full access and the secondary full access at Kestrel Court. And as far as I'm concerned, there's been no other changes, because that's really what is being depicted in the plan, so, unless I'm missing something.
well, on your second page, your first paragraph on the first page says findings and subject to the following conditions. We go through the findings, right, on the motion, and then the conditions. Do we have to list all the conditions as well?
Yes,
So we have to read all 3 pages?
yes.
Okay.
It's actually 4 because that first
The way I'm reading it.
paragraph at the bottom of the first page 3.
Well, since I was the only one in the minority, I will defer to the majority on this one.
All right, I move that council approve the second reading of ordinance number 10-13 to amend the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, rezoning the 39.39 acres of real property bearing tax parcel number 80-21-20-176-002, located at the north end of Mill Street and north of Kestrel Ridge Drive, from the R2 district, parentheses, single-family residential, close parentheses, to the PD district, parentheses, planned development, based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. The findings being the rezoning and uses proposed by applicant Oakland 40 Group LLC and contract purchaser Paul Elkow in the preliminary Stage 1 plan development site plan of Knolls of South Lyon, May 2013, prepared by Washtenaw Engineering, job number 31064, file number 9747, consists of 7 sheets, of which the last revised June 7th, which,
October 11th.
yeah, October 11th, if this remains accurate, and it does, contains, depicts, and shows the following. Excuse me. 189 detached condominium units. 2, minimum lot size of 7,200 square feet. 3, 18.06 acres of residential use and development. 4, 15.78 acres of open space, including wetlands and preservation of stands of mature trees. 5.5 acres of proposed right-of-way within the proposed development. 6, a 20-foot buffer between the adjacent Eagle Heights subdivision and the proposed development. 7, a paved pedestrian trail system throughout the proposed development that allows residents and the public access to the natural features in the development and connects the city's rail trail adjacent to the western boundary of the property. And now 9, a primary access road into the proposed development via North Mill Street and a secondary access point via a through road meeting city standards connected through Kestrel Ridge as shown in the 10...
Kestrel Court.
Kestrel Court.
I'm sorry, Kestrel Court, excuse me, as shown in the 10-11-13 plan. The rezoning and preliminary stage 1 site plan meets the standards contained in section 102-382 of the zoning ordinance for the planned development district, and specifically, A, the rezoning and proposed development will have a beneficial effect in terms of public health, safety, welfare, or convenience on present and potential surrounding land uses which cannot be achieved under a single zoning district. The uses proposed will encourage a more efficient use of public utilities and services and lessen the burden on circulation systems surrounding properties and the environment. B, the proposed development is consistent with the city's anticipated master plan designation for the property. C, the rezoning is warranted by the design and amenities incorporated in the preliminary stage 1 site plan. D, the usable open space provided for the preliminary stage 1 site plan is greater than the total minimum usable space, open space required under the property's existing R2 zoning. E, the proposed development meets the city's off-street parking requirements. F, the proposed development provides adequate landscaping to ensure the proposed uses will be adequately buffered from adjacent uses. G, the proposed development provides adequate vehicular and pedestrian circulation and allows safe, convenient, uncongested, and well-defined circulation within and to the property. H, the proposed development reasonably protects and preserves natural and historical features on the property by preserving open space, stands of mature trees, and wetlands areas. The conditions are as such: the rezoning and proposed uses and development shall be subject to the following conditions imposed pursuant to the city's zoning ordinance and applicable state law. 1, sections 102-381 through 102-392 of the City of South Lyon zoning ordinance pertaining to the PD Development Zoning District as amended. 2, council approval of preliminary stage 1 planned development site plan of Knolls of South Lyon, May 2013, prepared by Washtenaw Engineering, job number 31064, file number 9747, consists of 7 sheets, of which the last was revised 10/11/2013. 3, actually, if this is accurate, I probably should put that in the event that we find out there's something different. 3, city council approval of the final stage 2 site plan of Knolls of South Lyon on the property pursuant to the city's zoning ordinance. 4, any and all conditions of the council approvals relating to the property, the rezoning of the property, the proposed development, and the preliminary stage 1 and final stage 2 planned development site plans of Knolls of South Lyon as reflected in the official minutes and documentation of such approvals. 5, all development, improvement, and use of the property being subject to and in conformity with the approval or the approved preliminary stage 1 and final stage 2 planned development site plans for the property. 6, the applicable city ordinances and design standards. 7, submission of satisfactory proof of applicant's ownership and contract purchaser's interest in the property, the sufficiency of which shall be determined by the city of South Lyon, or by the city in sole discretion, its sole discretion.
I'm a lawyer, I couldn't figure it
8, a financial guarantee, a letter of credit satisfactory to the city in its sole discretion to ensure completion of any and all site improvements contained, shown and depicted in the preliminary Stage 1 and final Stage 2 plan development site plans for the property, specifically including those referenced in Section 102-38, parentheses 1, of the city's zoning ordinance, which shall be provided to the city prior to the issuance of any permits for development. 9, the recordation affidavit recorded in Oakland County's Register of Deeds reflecting the rezoning of the property and the conditions thereof, including the requirement that no development of the property shall occur except in accordance with the approved preliminary Stage 1 site plan and final Stage 2 site plan and/or approved amendments thereto. Thank you. Are we square?
Yep, very good job.
So the easy part is to say second.
Have it before I pass out.
Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
just wanted everybody to know the reason I'm voting no for this is based solely on the finding that there'll be a secondary access point instead of a 20-foot wide emergency access point. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Everyone vote?
I don't know, it's,
Mr. Mayor or the clerk, can you verify for the audience whether the motion passed?
It passed.
Thank you.
Can you verify the motion again?
okay, now we've got the other issue.
You know, it might be nice if Mr. Elkow were to show us the elevations that he had brought along, just to give people a little bit more comfort of what aesthetically it's likely to look like.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I've carried these around for 2 meetings and just haven't been given the opportunity, so at this point, can I spread these out for you to look at? And I apologize some to the audience because I can't make them look both ways, so if somebody chooses to ask from here to show to them, I will do so.
Dominoes.
Our showroom. Holiday one and the non-holiday one.
Yeah, exactly.
How many total different style houses are we talking?
At this point, we're showing first, the 2 in the middle are the existing Heights, Eagle Heights houses, so we have that as a reference point. We're looking at 4 different houses with as many as 4 different elevations that can
This
be
is what we
had
just
in each
got.
one. So
Right.
doing that math, I don't know, how many does that give us? Just
There's
20
good variety.
possible houses. So what we've got a colonial that we can have in the 1,700 square feet, a
That's
colonial
something
in
we
2,000 square feet,
planning to do.
a first floor master that would give us 1,700 square feet, the original homes that are on Eagle Heights. And then the one over there is a 2,200 square foot, which is what we use for the presentation to show the largest house that we think could possibly work in that site. And knowing that all of these would very easily fit there, and I think they would fit within the neighborhood. I'm a firm believer in brick. I think we have to have brick to that.
The one that you showed for the example on the footprint?
No, the one,
Oh, this one?
that one.
Oh.
This one is a friend of mine's, and I just wanted to show you, if you wanted to go to the $300,000 mark, what it would take in a house to get to that spot.
Okay.
So that's our Wellington over there, which is the model that was shown for purposes of figuring out what size deck
Dextrum, yeah.
could be.
That's the second one in, right? That's the second one in right there too, right?
Which one?
The second one in is the same as this one.
This one?
No, next one, 2. There you go.
No, it's not.
Okay. It looks like it is.
Similar, but not quite the same.
So essentially, double gables and reverse gables are where you find your elevation changes. Yeah, all right.
You know, shorter porches, longer porches, stone accents if they're wanted by the customer. So,
Can you go through the square footage of each of these approximately?
okay, the Tuscany, which is our smallest colonial, is 1,620. The Essex, which is a little larger colonial, can go to 1,950. With a sunroom on it, it adds an extra 150 square feet. The Vienna, which is a first floor master, right around 1,700 square feet. We're wrestling a little bit with a ranch because of the 30 and the 40-foot setbacks and 16-foot side. With a reasonable garage, it leaves any exposure less than 1,200 feet of living space. Now, granted, I'm basing that off the smallest lot, which is 140, and you'll see we have many lots that are much larger than that, that would allow for some cherry picking of where we could put different houses, especially ranches. We found that ranches have become much more popular in the last 5 years than what they were, 10 years ago. I think that's a function of people like myself, an aging population that's looking for more space. So we'll find a way. I'm sure we'll sell ranches. And then our Wellington, which is kind of our standard at the Heights at Elko Farms, because we have a 2,200 square foot minimum. It's 2,236 square feet. And that would be our largest house we would offer in there, would be my guess. My guess, it probably would not sell as many as the Tuscany or the Essex, just because of the price and the size versus what this sub will do. And we're really, this is always an interesting thing when you bring a site inside a developed area, what is the right product? And we've done some research, but it's still kind of a gut feel of what you have to do and what you have to offer in price, because price is very important. We're still competing predominantly with Lyon Township, and we'll have to strive to show the amenities of being in the city, the community living as such, versus tackling some of the issues that Lyon Township, that their taxes are a little cheaper. So,
I think there's a good demonstration here, though, of the importance of that setback. You see the Eagle Heights has 2 cars stacked in their driveway, and they're not encroaching into the sidewalk, where you can clearly see that that's not going to be viable in their elevations that they've showed.
right, and where these were built in the villas, we have a small setback, and it's difficult. People park across the sidewalks all the time, so.
Right, and that's something that shouldn't be
Glenn was kind enough
tolerated.
to call me today, and we talked a little bit about that. And also what we found is that we're a truck community. There's no getting around that. Whether it's F-150, Dodge 1500, whether it's, the Sierra, is that we find that people come to us because we do allow for some modification of our houses. We'll build a 2 or 3 foot longer garage so that the pickup truck can fit inside the garage, so that you can walk in front of the truck to get into the house. And then that will help take care of some of the issues that you spoke about, which is the need to park outside, and then it hangs into the sidewalk area. So I think that
But
will
it
help.
shouldn't be at the expense of doing that, is my point, so,
Correct.
I mean,
Right. But with the R2 setbacks that we have now listed on our sheet, it should be able to keep people out of that sidewalk.
right. Thank you for bringing those. I think that that gives people a better picture of what they can anticipate.
Mr. Mayor,
Tim?
just as a point of information, I want to confirm that these elevations are for illustration purposes.
Right.
And we're not, this is something that will be found in the final site plan review process.
All right, motion 2. We have to do the second motion now?
Yes.
Hey, I thought you balked at the last one because you weren't going to vote for it.
I can't, I think you have to list that same condition.
Can you say what he said?
I'd rather you didn't.
Well, there you go. I think I already put that away.
All right. I move the council approve with conditions, the preliminary stage 1 plan development site plan of Knolls of South Lyon, May 2013, prepared by Washington Engineering, job number 31064, file number 9747, consisting of 7 sheets with the last revision 1011, 13, if that remains correct, which depicts and shows the following: 1, 89 detached condominium units; 2, minimum lot size of 7,200 square feet; 3, 18.06 acres for residential use and development; 4, 15.78 acres of open space, including wetlands and preservation of stands of mature trees; 5, 5.5 acres of proposed right-of-way within the proposed development; 6, a 20-foot buffer between the adjacent Eagle Heights subdivision and the proposed development; 7, a paved pedestrian trail system throughout the proposed development that allows residents and the public access to the natural features in the development and connects to the city's rail trail adjacent to the western boundary of the property; and 8, a preliminary access road into the proposed development via North Mill Street and a secondary access point via a through road meeting city standards connected to Kestrel Court.
That was a primary access through Mill Street, correct?
I did.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah.
And subject to the following conditions imposed pursuant to the city's zoning ordinance and applicable state law. 1, City of South Lyon Ordinance Number 10-13. 2, council approval of the final Stage 2 site plan for Knolls of South Lyon on the property pursuant to the city's zoning ordinance. 3, any and all conditions on the council's approval relating to the property, the rezoning of the property, the proposed development, and the preliminary Stage 1 and final Stage 2 plan development site plans of Knolls of South Lyon as reflected in the official minutes and documentation as such approvals. 4, submission of a full and complete application for site plan review, including all required supporting documentation. 5, compliance with the procedural requirements of Section 102-381 through 102-392 of the city's zoning ordinance pertaining to submission, review, and approval of a final Stage 2 planned development site plan. 6, submission of the proposed master deed and any other documentation to be recorded with the Register of Deeds with respect to all matters subject to regulation by the city, including, without limitation, ongoing preservation and maintenance of drainage, retention, detention, woodlands, wetland, open space, pathways, other natural areas, and common areas in the development for review and approval by the city's planning commission and legal counsel prior to recordation. Anybody still awake?
You done?
As fascinating as it was, yes.
Well, I'll second it.
Okay.
About all I can say today, anyway.
I keep looking over there wondering who's talking.
He said to me, who's that? And I'm like, it's Harvey.
Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
again, we'll be voting no just because of the condition of the secondary access point with a through road as opposed to emergency access.
Yeah. Personally, Kestrel Court to me is not the ideal location. It just still funnels traffic to have to travel up through the subdivision of Eagle Heights anyways. So it's going to really be bothering to all those people as well. Boy, I hope I'm not losing my voice.
Does anybody have some Purell?
Seemingly this is going to be the best chance to save some of the wildlife areas that are still open behind Kestrel. If they were to go around the corner, and they don't even know who owns this other access that was pointed out by a resident.
Actually, that was looked up, and it is owned by the association.
So the association would have to sell it, and then we shouldn't be put in a position to force our builder to be buying property.
Exactly, which would be, according to the attorney, unconstitutional, so. Now, you do have the other alternative court, but to move it down a couple of 100 feet, I mean, you really don't end up gaining a great deal of benefit from doing that, so.
Well, I was a firm believer we had to have a second entrance, and that was not what I envisioned, but if that's the best we can come up with and keep it palatable to the builder as well, I guess we don't have much choice. Anybody else?
Well, I don't think that this is ultimately what my vision of the property had been, but it seems to meet the benchmarks that are established to be able to develop the property. So I don't make any claims to understand what the trends of housing are moving to. The idea of the trade of your minimizing your personal space for the larger communal space. I understand having open space and the enjoyment of large expansive land without disturbing all the natural attributes of it. I just don't know whether or not having a small lot like that will be sellable, and I'm trusting that Mr. Elkow isn't going to make this kind of an investment without an expectation that he'll get people to buy these homes. So.
Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Welcome to the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. We will see you back after Planning Commission.
That's great.
You might not make it to that.
Okay, move on to new business, emergency winter parking ordinance,
Hopefully you.
a first reading.
We talked about this at the last meeting, changing the limited parking during the winter hours to continuous parking except under emergency conditions. So the attorney, with the help of Bob and I and Lloyd, made some changes to this ordinance, and we're asking you to approve this first reading of those changes. And there's a picture there of a sign, a similar sign we
I
would
think
utilize.
that's wonderful.
It obviously wouldn't say 2 inches or Wixom or whatever, but we would make it our own and get those ordered tomorrow if you do in fact approve it tonight.
But I mean, it's not ambiguous, I mean, people
Right.
should be able to understand, if you see a collection of snow,
Get off the
you
road.
need to get off the road, so.
Got a lot of faith in people.
Exactly.
Well,
A lot of faith in that
we
sign.
can react in the event that they don't.
That's right.
With the 2-inch limit, it's, so now when we get those,
Ted, that's not, that was just Wixom sign.
Yeah.
It would actually be 4 inches is what it calls out for in our ordinance.
well, whatever limit it is that's listed there, are we gonna be protected from the fact that cars that are parked there and the salt truck goes by flinging its salt, chipping their cars and stuff? Are we gonna be held harmless?
We're going to use a softer salt.
Isn't that what that stuff we make is? Soft?
The brine?
Yeah, isn't that soft salt?
That's the preconditioning.
I'm just playing.
Let's hurry through this while you make it.
Mr. Mayor? could I-
Yes.
I would like to just address this real quickly. I did want to point out, I meant, when I was preparing for tonight, I realized that I hadn't provided the context of what the current ordinance says. I did want to point out that many of these provisions are contained within your existing ordinance. There is some additional language regarding various types of roads and routes. And by looking at other communities, with the administration, we've tried to streamline this, make it workable, but yet flexible to allow the DPW and the city to work within this ordinance and try and accomplish what you're really trying to accomplish. So there are some nuances and some flexibility in how this would be enforced. For example, I don't think you're required to tow cars. You could ticket them, you don't have to tow them, you don't even have to ticket them. So there is some flexibility within this ordinance that you can utilize, and you may even want to develop a plan on providing notices for a certain number of days, weeks, months to get people familiar with it before you start taking the full enforcement action available under the ordinance.
My only concern about this whole thing since day one was the convenience and efficacy of our DPW to be able to clear the streets. I grew up in an area that was a sea of ranches as far as you could see that were all stacked together with 1 million kids playing around them in streets that were 27-foot curb to curb. Ours are 33-foot. And everyone seemed to survive. The cars seemed to make it to the end of winter without being all bashed up. So I'm sure that we'll be able to get this figured out.
Mr. Mayor,
Mike?
2 questions. The way I read that, either Bob can call a snow emergency, or if it's 4 inches per hour, right? So, I mean, we have the flexibility of if it's gonna be an ice storm or something like that, that you can call. It doesn't have to just be 4 inches per hour. If you need to call a snow emergency, you can do it.
And hopefully that'll be, we'll know a day before, according to.
Yeah, you could do it in anticipation. Right.
Okay.
I think the way this, I think, works out is even with forecasting, you can declare it and make it effective as a particular time in the future when you expect the snow to have reached the right level to require the trucks to get out. And we're gonna figure, I think staff and administration are looking at other ways to notify people other than just the posting provided.
How many signs are we talking about buying?
16.
And they're gonna go on the major roads in the city?
And any entrance to Martindale, 11 Mile from subs and stuff like that.
Okay.
They'll replace the ones that are out there now about seasonal parking.
All right, thank you.
You know,
Oh, no, sorry, no.
I was just gonna say, we've all had that experience sitting at a stop sign in the winter when a snow truck pulls up and pops the side of your truck with your, and what Ted brings up is a very, very valuable question about when we're out plowing at 2 in the morning throwing snow. It wasn't an issue when cars were in the driveway. We're not hitting them with salt. I think you're asking the guys a lot to be turning off the salt every time they pass a vehicle, or the brine and that kind of stuff. So with this comes a certain amount of situations that we haven't necessarily had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Just consider that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Joe?
Okay, my question is for Chief Collins. I was wondering how you intend on enforcing this, and what will be the policy that you're going to try to target, I guess?
Well, much like the current ordinance, the first thing we would do is issue warning violations to violators.
Okay.
Then, for those that choose not to heed the warnings and the public notices that we would put out on Nixle, Facebook, Twitter, the city's electronic sign, for people that disregard all of the above, then we would have to issue tickets. If a vehicle were a problem to the DPW or a repeat offender, then I would say, particularly if it's a problem to DPW for plowing purposes, we could very well wind up having to tow it.
So I'm clear, you would personally, not you personally, but one of your officers would notify the resident before, as a warning, before they would get a ticket?
Well, we put a warning ticket on the vehicle.
Okay, understood.
Now, I can't guarantee that, let's say we issue 50 warning notices throughout the community, and then we get a big snowstorm, and then there's a violator. Well, if a month or two has gone by that the ordinance has been in effect, and we've issued a large number of warning tickets, and we've publicized a new ordinance, then we get a big snow down the road after all that has taken place,
Right.
then I can't sit here and guarantee that the person who violates 2 months down the road was one of the 50 or 100 people who received warning tickets a month ago.
Well, I guess the point of my questions is just to be clear that you're not going to be targeting people that are not violating it. They'll be given adequate warning before they are ticketed.
We always want to get voluntary compliance through education whenever possible. We're not looking to run out there and write tickets. In fact, we'll be writing far, far less tickets under this new ordinance than we were writing every winter under the old ordinance. On days that there was 0 snow, we were still obligated to write tickets.
Thank you. That was my point. Thank you.
Can you give the address again for people who can sign up for the Nixle?
I'm not sure that I know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that it's simply www.nixle.com.
And then people can get the local notices that way.
They can, and we're also going to try to increase our social network presence by reinstituting our Facebook page and also expanding onto Twitter.
Okay.
Perhaps the Herald could contact Lieutenant Sovic to expand on all of those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant
That sounds good.
Sovic also got some training on putting it up on the electronic sign. We'll get it up on the website, and then we'll notify the local radio stations and the TV stations.
Are you going to get a decal on the squad's window like SLPD
Like? Yeah.
on Facebook?
That's a good thought.
That's a scary thought.
All right, well, I'll make the motion then to approve the first reading, since Harvey's over here dying. I approve the first reading of the proposed amendment to the City Code of Ordinances, Section 90-1.
That's all there is to read?
That's it. I picked the.
Somebody want to second
I'll
that?
second it.
Ma'am.
Let's get it going.
Further discussion?
God dying.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I propose that we let Harvey go home.
Resolution for the Lake Street Road project.
This is simply a resolution by the council giving me authority to make some decisions on the Lake Street Road project that's going to be coming up, such as signing the contracts with MDOT that I have on my desk, and
Excuse me.
what else should be needed with that, such as change orders and things like that.
I move that we designate David Murphy, the city manager, as the authorized project representative for the Lake Street Road Improvement Project for the city of South Lyon.
I'll support.
Further discussion, I'd like to discuss, but I'll do it during my mayor's comments regarding something along the same line there. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? trick or treat hours.
Something the council passes every year, trick or treating from 6 PM to 8 PM on the 31st.
Harvey, you love this one so much.
That's
You
why
sure
I'm
you-
sitting here quietly. Stupid thing.
And keep your ball off my grass.
Halloween hater during election year, imagine that.
Bob Humbug.
All right, I'll make the motion that we set the hours for trick or treating from 6 PM to 8 PM.
I'll second.
Further discussion, I personally won't be voting for this approval. I feel 1 hour is sufficient. We did it for over 50 years of my lifetime, and it wasn't a problem. All in favor, say aye.
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 That's because you could walk faster, Ted.
Oppose? Aye.
For all the dentists out there, we voted for you.
We used to do it from the time it got dark.
Now we have a donation of a burial plot.
Bah, humbug.
We're gonna put it in a raffle?
Auction it off.
If you recall, this was Margaret Gibbert's. She came forward with this idea of donating some unused graves from her family. Unfortunately, she became ill and passed away, but her son would still like to follow through with that donation. We have prepared the transfer, and I have additional documentation that I've provided to the city clerk regarding the details of Mr. Bibbert as the trustee of the trust. But all the paperwork looks in order. If council approves, we'll have the clerk execute the transfer and complete the donation.
Okay, we need somebody to make that motion to accept.
Well, I guess I'll make the motion then to accept the donation of grave 1, lot 33A, block 3 to the city from the Vibert Family Trust with thanks and condolences to the Vibert family.
I'll support.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
How long have they held this property?
I want to say the family purchased them back in the early 50s.
Okay, yeah, because it's an old area of the...
It's in the older area of the cemetery. It's a prime location.
Yeah, it's primo.
Nice view.
It is. It's a great view.
Personnel policy revision.
Talked about this at the last meeting. Our personnel policy hasn't been updated in a long, long time. And with some of the things that have transpired over the last year, I think it's a good idea to get this updated. And I asked our attorney to give us a cost estimate, which he has, and I'm asking you to approve this cost estimate. They think it would take approximately 40 hours, and their charge for this work is $130 per hour. That's not to say it's not to exceed that amount. So I'm asking you to approve getting this, our personnel policy updated by our attorneys.
It spoke to the idea of education as well as, in addition to just the rewrite. Do you
Yes.
have a feel for what knowing who you're going to be educating, do you have a feel for how much time you're going to have to invest?
I think it is, and I may not be the lead on this, some of the people that do employment law might be the lead on this, but as I understand, a significant amount of the time is spent with department heads, trying to identify what you do like from your current policy, what you would like to change, and then there's an aspect of drafting, finalizing, and working with the administration, department heads to kind of get everything set up, and then there's an education process regarding the implementation of these.
And procedure.
Right. And this does overlap with the union issues as well to a certain degree, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Hey, Joe.
Yeah, so this $130 per hour, is this the charge for somebody like you or somebody, partner or
Yes.
owner? Okay.
Yes.
Is this something that maybe, I don't know, paralegal could do for half the price?
No.
Oh, okay. I was asking him,
No.
but okay. Your expertise is appreciated as well. Okay, that answers my question. Do we anticipate it could be less than 40 hours? Seems pretty steep, 5,200.
This is the type of project where it's very difficult to set a specific number of hours that it's going to take. It's going to take what it's going to take. We've estimated 40 hours to complete the project. If the department heads have a real clear idea of what they'd like and they can provide the direction, then that will shorten the time.
Yeah,
But
from-
if it takes some time to try and work with department heads or a committee of council to try and really figure out where the changes are being made, that may add more time.
Yeah,
So it's very difficult to estimate the number of hours.
I mean, obviously, you have more experience than me doing this because you've done it before, but I guess my suggestion would be send out some sort of a survey, some questionnaire, something where you could get a guide for what the department heads are looking for, so we don't have to sit down and spend a whole week, just minimizing time as much as possible, my suggestion.
It seems like the exposure that we've had in the last year, too, though, would give you a little more familiarity with what our existing policy is, so, the tweaks might end up being more evident than had that not happened. So.
I have a question. Are you done? Yeah,
thank
okay.
you.
Is this the right time to do this, or should we wait till some of the union stuff and some of the MERS things are all worked out?
It's a very good point. I was talking internally in my office on this issue in particular. I think it's going to make sense I think you can go ahead and authorize it, but I think I would encourage or ask that we start it after the union contracts have been squared away. Because that way you're going to have a better understanding. You won't have the flux of union contracts trying to interfere with the personnel policy. They are separate to a certain degree, but I don't anticipate a long delay, but I think your point's well taken.
Okay.
There is a timing and scheduling aspect to it that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Were you trying to get something changed before you did more union work?
Pardon me?
Were you trying to get something
No,
changed
no,
before?
not at all, not at all. In fact, the union contracts take precedence over this anyways. And every year we have a contract up, so it doesn't really make a difference. We could settle the ones we have up this year, but come July, in fact, probably in early spring, I'll be negotiating the next one. So it's a continuous thing.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll make the motion since I'm on a roll, to approve the agreement with JRSJ for the review and update of the city personnel policy.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, can we make that with a not to exceed amount on there of 40 hours?
Just say no.
Well, I'm going to withdraw my motion then. If
Well,
that-
to what end, though, Joe? I mean, if we don't end up having a comprehensive rewrite, then, we're not really any better off than what we are now.
Well, I've said this, on many issues before, I think if you set a bar at a certain level, then it tends to make it a little harder to exceed that level. It's just a general practice, and I think in any business.
The problem with setting a bar is that if you set it at a certain point, you may be overlooking issues just because you're running up to the timeline, and do you want to be in a position where you had to get it done within a certain number of hours, and you may have overlooked some issues trying to get it done with those hours? That's my only concern. I mean, this is a personnel policy that would affect all city employees, so you want to make sure it's done right. And I don't know if you can set a bar or like a not to exceed 40 hours when you're dealing with events that at some point may affect both the city and the employees, depending on how the personnel policy is written. I just want to make sure it's done right. I'm not necessarily going to limit it or say we limit it to 40 hours and get a half-assed job. I want it done correctly.
Well, I certainly have confidence in our attorney that if he's quoting, it's estimating it's going to take 40 hours, that it would not exceed it. Nevertheless.
It's overly punitive, too. I mean, if the time goes well over that, that's going to generate a kind of a bad blood, that, we can't trust a thumbnail estimation, so.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, if this if the council chooses to approve this, and we've set out an estimate, if it looks like we're going to exceed the estimate, I would be coming back to at least advise and make council aware of that and update the estimate to complete the work.
With that explanation, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I withdrew my motion.
Oh, that's right, you did.
Yeah, so I will make the motion again. That we, I'm sorry. That we approve the agreement with JRSJ for the review and update of the city personnel policy.
I'll second it again.
Further discussion. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Managers report.
The downtown DDA trick-or-treating will be on the October 24th from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Cool Yule apparently is coming up and needs volunteers. You can see the chamber website or Ms. Thompson over there. And from what I understand, you do need help, right? And there was 2 trees out in front here that died. The school took them down quite a while ago. I've asked the Art Commission to look into putting some kind of art out there. They're coming and they have one design now, and we need to talk about that a little bit. But anyways, I just wanted to let you know, they're working on putting something out there before the snow flies. And my administrative assistant, Debbie Nogo, has resigned. Her last day will be the 24th. She wanted to see the downtown trick-or-treating through. So just wanted to let you know that. I do need to replace her as soon as possible. That's normally not a problem because it's within my authority to hire someone, but we've been talking about MERS a lot and waiting until we get MERS settled and get them under a different pension program. So I guess I'm asking you, should I wait or should or can I go ahead and do that since it's kind of trading one for one? I need this person soon.
Do we have any idea when MERS is going to get that projection back to us?
They said, I think it was 4 weeks, the email said, and it's been a couple weeks. So I'm hoping within, by the end of November, I should have either another meeting or my recommendation for you based and giving you the information from the actuarial that's being done currently.
Mr. Mayor. My opinion is the MERS thing is a long-term project. Let's hire the people that we need now, fit them into the current system, and as soon as we get the other thing done, then everybody else starts on the new system.
Mr. Mayor?
But
Joe.
Our city's at 2.7 million, if I'm correct, that the number we're underfunded by. Is that true, Mr. Murphy?
one of the numbers.
Sort of, yes.
Oh, okay, well, that's what we've been presented, and that's the number that I see.
don't really consider it underfunding because we are paying it, but
Okay.
if everybody went through and retired, that is what we would owe, yes, sir.
Right, okay. So, to me, that is a big number and a big burden on our city right now, and I think we should, we've been talking about this MERS for how long, over a year now? It's time to try and get it closed as soon as possible, so I think we should wait until hiring somebody. Just one opinion, though.
Well, I don't think MERS is going to be solved in the next several months.
Who said that?
From the way I see it working out.
We're just making fun of your voice, Harvey. We're just making fun of your
I
voice.
said, who said that?
Fun.
He said, who said that?
Try to
Just-
give you a little something every.
Yeah, please don't share that.
Yeah, David mentioned that we don't have the ability to use temporary help and stuff, so, it's not a position, they're already understaffed, so the idea.
Why don't we
of
have the
letting them
ability
go
to
on-
use temporary help? Didn't we use some temporary help a little bit ago, like Mrs. Beagle?
She was part-time.
Is she part-time,
She was part-time, yes.
could she temporary help?
Well, no, she has a full-time job elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
Didn't we have somebody else too? No?
Sue for a while, wasn't she?
We have a young lady that works part-time in the bookkeeping office, but she goes to school.
Is she able to work part-time? And then,
No, because she goes to school full-time.
oh, okay.
So when she's not going to school, she's here.
Can you do it with a part-time person for a while?
You know, I don't know. The planning can get kind of difficult to train someone how to do that and then have them leave. I can try and do it myself, the best I can.
Have you developed a job description for that
Yes.
job?
I've got a job description. I, in fact, edited it again today.
Do you meet the needs of the job description?
Do I? No. No, probably
Is
don't.
there any viability to hiring a couple of part-time people, and then once the whole MERS thing is fleshed out, I mean, we would have a better feel for who was a better candidate? I know that it's difficult to
You know,
coordinate all
in
that stuff,
yeah,
but we don't have a
It would be
perfect
more
world.
time-consuming to do that. I can just do it myself. I mean, I'm going to have to find a way. It would take too much of my time to go and train two people or one person to do this, and then have them work with Carmen and the attorney and the DDA.
There you go.
It's what? There you go, what?
Good idea. I mean, it's for the best of the city too, given how much we're underfunded to either have a temporary
I need
person who pick
staff
up the
to work.
slack.
You know, this city has been very, very thin on staff for years, and that's great. But we do have a job to do, and we need to get it done.
Well, you said that you could have part-time people. Have we explored trying to find part-time people?
No,
Okay.
because I don't want a part-time person. I need a full-time person, Joe. I said we can't, it would be too difficult to hire two part-time people and train them.
I'm looking at the long haul, and we've been talking about this MERS and how it's going to affect 50 years of this city.
Absolutely.
So you're looking at 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And how you don't want to be inconvenienced for 6 months.
It's not just inconvenience.
Okay, what happens when Bob
Whatever.
loses a person? Or what happens in the
And-
DPW or water? Are we just going to just keep not hiring people because we have MERS, which MERS has us at their, I mean, basically, MERS has no advantage to, speeding this process up. I mean, 4 weeks to get a projection, and then we had to wait 2 weeks because all of a sudden they told us you owe us $500 in order to get this projection done, even though we had somebody from MERS saying we'd like that projection done. We gave her that direction. They sat on it for 2 weeks until somebody made a phone call. I think David made a phone call and asked, where's our projection? There's no advantage for MERS to speed this process along. Right. So the issue is going to be, when do we draw the line? When Bob needs two people and we can't fill it because we're waiting for MERS, it could be another 6 months. We've dealt with MERS now for a year. And we finally got to the point where we want a projection, and it's been 4 weeks. So I understand what, the city, but I'm also looking at what point are we going to draw the line where we're just going to have to start hiring people even if MERS is not a factor. I don't know when that point is. But I'm just concerned that if we keep putting things off, we're going to be a skeleton crew in the city for all these departments because we're waiting for MERS to finally come through and get us the information we need so we can make a decision.
Well, and the services we're so proud of providing will end up diminishing and to the point where it'll be recognized. So.
Well, speaking of DPW, we already have one person off with a back injury. He's been off for several months. It'll probably be another few months, and he'll probably end up retiring. We have another person who just had a heart attack, and we don't expect him back for at least a month. So we were already a skeleton crew at the DPW, now even more so. So there's another 2 positions just kind of hanging out there. But, I'll make do with the best I can, and we'll try and get this through until MERS is up and running again. Thank you.
Well, I don't know that's not my opinion. I think we have to tend to our business, so, and hope that we can conclude the MERS thing in a timely manner. I mean, that's going to take place in its own clock. Mm-hmm. So we need to keep pushing MERS so that they're not the obstacle, but we can't keep, letting people fall by the wayside and expect that we're still going to be able to pull off providing services to our residents. So,
If I may, I'm curious to know how many reminders, how many phone calls we sent to MERS. Have we escalated to their directors? How much follow-up has been done to this lack of
For what?
response? Well, Mike was giving an example of how it's
Right.
taken 4 weeks. Have you called, what's
Well, I called
the
them and
director
asked
of
them
MERS?
where our actuarial was. They said, well, we're waiting to find out if you want it, what was that, if we wanted it smoothed or not, and then where's our $500 for the actuarial?
But the next person in line, besides the
But
contact who
there
came in
wasn't a
here.
need to go to the next person
Okay.
in line. Once I found that out, I paid them their $500 and told them we did not want it smoothed out.
But-
So then they ordered the actuarial, sent me an email back a week later saying that they were going to do it at no charge.
But the thing I'm being told here is that it's, the problem is with the response from MERS. So if we're truly having a response with MERS in the response time, have we escalated to the director level within MERS?
I haven't seen a need for that yet, Joe.
I have no response then.
You asked a question, I gave you an answer.
well, I mean, if everything is going like clockwork, I mean, it's still going to end up taking time, right?
Well, yeah, their actuarial takes 4 weeks to do. At least that's what they're telling us. I can't make them do it any
We
quicker.
don't want it a day later than it needs to be. But, okay, so we get the actuarial. How long do you anticipate it taking us to come to a conclusion on which direction we're going to go forward with?
I don't know. I think
just it.
I
I
have
mean-
a recommendation for you already. I don't know that that'll change it. I'll get that out to you as soon as I get it. You can take a look at it. I don't know if you want to meet again to discuss it. We certainly can. We can do that right away. And then I guess I'll make my recommendation, and you can choose to take it, not take it. We could have somebody else come inside and take a look at all of our MERS and see if we're on the right track.
Well, this is,
I truly don't know. It could take a couple weeks, it could take a couple months. It depends on what your comfort level is with this.
did you want to say something?
Well, I do. I have a thought on the MERS issue. I didn't intend to bring it up at this point, but since we seem to be immersed in MERS right now, maybe this is a good time. I have a friend who is a retirement specialist, and I've just learned recently that he was hired as a consultant. And I thought, well, now there's an idea. He's an expert in retirement systems, and somebody else, it's a large municipal body, and he's not an expert in the MERS system. So I asked him recently, I said, are there people like yourself who are well-versed in MERS and what they're telling us and what the ins and outs of MERS are? Because right now, our only expert in MERS is the saleswoman from MERS.
Right.
And so I brought the idea here that I think we should put the word out. I asked my friend if he knows anybody to give their name to us, and I'll get it to David. I suggest that David can maybe pass the word through the city manager's professional organization. Are there any folks out there who are really good at the retirement systems and have the understanding? And maybe we can hire somebody for a few $100 to get a really good handle on what's possible, what's not possible, what we're being told, what these actuarial tables mean. Some of us have got a lot of hours invested in this thing, and it's, to my mind, it's not a whole lot clearer than it was to begin with. So I'm going to offer that as a suggestion to council that we look into the idea, or at least marinate on the idea for a bit, and then if you want to proceed that way, we'll give some direction to city manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't mean to bring that up here, but it just seemed appropriate time.
So you've gone from one side to the other, now you're saying you're not gonna hire somebody and
No,
blah, 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 and then.
You guys
Get a
haven't given
sense
me
of counsel on
any
that.
direction. I would like to hire someone as soon as possible. I need to hire someone as soon as possible to replace her. If you choose not to allow me to because of the MERS issue, I understand, and we'll get by until we do.
I mean, you're saying you can't handle just having a part-time person for now.
Well, I don't think it makes any sense because I'm going to have to train that person, and by the time they get trained, I would think MERS will be done, and then I'll have to go out and look for a full-time person.
But that person that you had partially trained can help train the new person.
Or maybe you ask for,
Just
it's
say
a
no.
possible full-time
If you don't want to
position.
hire somebody, just say
I
no.
personally
And maybe it's a possible
have
full-time
used
position.
our administrative assistant. She been very helpful to me on many issues of correspondence and so forth that I've had to deal with, and because the mayor gets a lot of mail in that respect, and you got to answer. I try to answer everything, and she added a nice professional touch to it. I felt it was nice to have her for that.
Would you like to continue that service, or are you done?
Well,
with
like I
that?
said, I don't know if it can be done with a part-time person. You know, that's whatever is palatable to the council.
You just have to maybe post a job for a part-time right now, looking at full-time in the future. So that the person that you hire would be available for full-time work, and they may take that job just part-time as they learn it.
Yeah, but I think that limits your pool too, because someone looking for full-time may not be able to take a part-time position for a few months.
You're right, but there's a whole lot of bad setups here, you know? We don't want to end up spending the long-term money. Yeah, I mean, we don't have a great alternative, that's all.
No.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Aaron. I mean,
Thanks, Joe.
looking, people are perusing Monster, Career Builder, whatever it is, looking part-time to full-time, you know? I don't know. But I've said enough, so no more comments from me, I promise.
Next time. Comment.
So are you done?
Sure.
Do you have something to say, Glenn?
Okay. Everybody enjoyed Pumpkin Fest. We caught a break. The weather was just spectacular. The attendance was actually more than what we could handle. But everybody seemed to have a wonderful time, and I'm looking forward to next year. That was a great deal of fun. Save for that, the water project moves on. I'm concerned with the water project. It's gone very well to date, but I'm starting to see some indications that they might not be nearly as motivated or focused now as they were in the beginning of the project. I was really hoping that they'd stay animated all the way through and we'd get the alleyway completed and the whole thing, and you know, that seems to be kind of up in the air right now, but hopefully we'll be through with this pretty soon and everyone can move on to the next project. So, that's all.
Okay. Aaron?
I just have a little suggestion. I don't know exactly who to talk to regarding it, but downtown trick-or-treating is next Thursday? Is that correct?
The 24th, yes. A week from this Thursday.
A week from this Thursday. I know that they asked for the scarecrows to go down this week. I mean, would it hurt to leave the scarecrows up for another couple days for downtown trick-or-treating? It might just be fun, unless the scarecrows are taking a beating. I don't know who you called to let that know, but I do know that a letter went out asking the scarecrows to come down, and I just thought maybe the scarecrows could stay up for downtown trick-or-treating and then go down. Just a comment.
Is that it?
That's it, I'm done.
Okay, Joe?
No comments, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bev?
No comment, thanks.
Mike?
Yes, our next community center meeting is this coming Monday, the 21st, here at South Lyon, be at 7 p.m. I too attended the Pumpkin Fest, and I was there Saturday night with the whole beer tent issue. I know the Pumpkin Fest committee is looking into redoing that for next year, and I already know there's been discussions about how to alleviate the problems that they had with the beer tent. Overall, though, it was great. Even working in the rain Sunday, there was a lot of people there, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Harvey?
Thank you. I'll just let my comments on the MERS consultant stand
your
for
comments?
my comment.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. I don't know how you can praise and really and show that you, I mean, I truly mean it from my heart, the committee for the Pumpkin Fest, the hard work that it takes to pull that off and to do what they do. I know some of them are sitting in the audience, and I think it's great that they're here. I had a particular issue where somebody represented to the group that I had said something which I hadn't, and they jumped all over to try and take care of it. I felt bad for them that took place. That was a total. Again, it was with the beer tent thing. I think that they've made every effort possible, and it looks like they're still working on it, trying to work on their improvements. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do. This isn't just a 2 weeks before the event thing. You work year-round at it, and you work so hard at it, and to keep your tenacity going and interest going is, I salute you for that, and I thank you very much. And I mentioned something about our Lake Street project. Can somebody satisfy me that the 35 to 40 holes that we now have on Pontiac Trail, Lafayette Street are going to be redone and so smooth that we're not going to know it happened?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking we are to a point that we may have to resurface that road too.
I think our COC would make
It's gonna do
make sure of that. But I also am getting a price to have that paved, at least that portion, because you had mentioned you didn't like the checkerboard aspect of it. So our engineers are working with Brico to get a cost estimate on that. But it will be back to our COC standards.
Okay.
And if I may, just on that comment, Ted,
Mm-hmm.
those areas that you're speaking of along Pontiac Trail is what's occurred on every street, residential street in the city. It's just much more obvious when you're driving down Pontiac Trail. But every home along Whipple, Scott, have had those. It's a very tough job. We're almost home, but they will be repaired.
Well, we're getting closer to colder weather, and I'm wondering how that's, whether you're talking about next year, next May, maybe they'll do them? Because they're already starting to fall apart in certain respects.
Those are temporary, and they will be addressed hopefully within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. All right, I'm done with my comments.
I move we go to executive session for,
Purpose of
You
collective
thought you were
bargaining.
almost
oh
home
yeah,
free, huh?
collective bargaining.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Roll call. Got a roll call.
Okay.
Yes.
Hibble,
Yes.
Brazy,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yep.
Dixon. Yes.
We will be coming back to an open session, and we have a couple of things we might be mentioning at that point, but we don't know how long this part's going to last. But we're going to take a momentary break for sure.
Everybody
All right,
might
all in
wanna
favor,
shake
say
Harvey's
aye.
hand.
Again.
Yeah. Don't even talk about that. That's just a crap.
You out of breath? Glenn?
So, yeah, I just had this far side, I can refine everything. It's